Hey guys, what's up? First of all, for anybody who might be here thinking that this is a tech channel, this is not a tech channel. So if you want to get some kind of review on how Apple iOS 13.7 is from a tech point of view, you'll want to find a different channel. As for my subscribers, you guys know that I got into an argument with Apple whenever they first put the infrastructure onto the iPhone for these apps that are going to do exposure notifications. At the time, I was ensured that they were only putting the infrastructure onto the software, that you would then have to get a third-party app and download that app in order for the features that they were building into the infrastructure of the operating system to be activated. Well, after this argument with Apple and a few episodes I've done on what I have dubbed health tracking and restriction apps, I decided the best thing for me to do would be to go sign up to be an iOS beta tester. And all that means is you don't get developer rights or anything like that, but you get a profile that allows you to download the next version of the Apple operating system that's coming out before everyone else does. So I was able to download, what was it, I think 16.3, where they first put the infrastructure on the phone. And they told me personally that it would not be an Apple feature, but rather just they're building the infrastructure in there for other apps to take advantage of it. Well, I have downloaded Apple 13.7 now as a beta tester, and already they've backtracked because they've taken this, quote, infrastructure that they created in Apple 16.3, and they've integrated it as an actual Apple feature on the operating system. No longer do you have to download a CV19 tracking app. It is built into the Apple operating system as a feature. This is something that they told me was not going to happen. So already it's a feature. Currently, it's a feature that you have to opt into. I would suspect shortly it will be a feature that you have to opt out of. Now, I already know what the argument Apple's going to give to me if I were to talk to them about their inclusion of this feature. And that is, states still have to choose to participate in the program or not. I went and checked to see if my state was participating in the program, and it's not. But this way, instead of individual states or countries having to create their own apps to do exposure notification, Apple has made it to where all they have to do is opt in to the information that Apple itself is already collecting. So they've made it much easier to take advantage of this data. And they've done it in such a way where, like previously, Virginia and various other states had created their own apps. No state has to create its own app now. All they have to do is tell Apple, hey, we'll participate in your exposure notification program. I think we should go and read through what Apple's saying they're going to do with this information. What episode was it where I was saying that they had no monetary reason to make all these separate apps, and I was talking about this? Was this yesterday? The day before? I don't even know anymore. All the days run together. Either way, go back a couple of days and look at the episode I did on these, because I did some more in-depth stuff, and also go to my playlists, and there should be a couple of more episodes on that in my playlist. Exposure notification and privacy. Exposure notifications help protect your privacy by using random, rotating Bluetooth identifiers to determine if you may have been exposed to someone who has indicated that they have the CV. With your consent, exposure notifications can be used by a government or public health authority to notify you if you may have been exposed to the virus that causes CV. You can choose to install a public health authority's exposure notifications app to do this, or if the public health authority has taken steps to enable it in its region, you can choose to activate exposure notifications without downloading an app. You must choose to enable exposure notifications. It is not on by default. In addition, you do not need to have location services enabled to use exposure notifications. And so they're telling you exactly what I've been saying. This, quote, change to the infrastructure that they did in order to allow, quote, exposure notification apps onto the phone so that they could work, actually in and of itself is a system that does contact tracing. And now it's on your phone. And so when everyone was saying, I don't want a contact tracing app automatically downloaded onto my phone, and they said, don't worry, it's just the infrastructure so such an app can work, they downloaded a CV tracking app onto your phone. If you choose to enable exposure notifications, you will be asked for permission to collect and share random identifiers. This will allow your device to broadcast via Bluetooth a random identifier, a string of random numbers that changes every 10 to 20 minutes. The Bluetooth identifiers are generated on your device using a cryptographic routine from a randomly generated key that changes at least once every 24 hours to further protect your privacy. The Bluetooth identifiers and the random device keys do not include your location information or identity. Other devices that have exposure notifications enabled will be listening for these Bluetooth identifiers and broadcasting theirs as well. Your device will record and securely store the identifiers of those other devices that are in Bluetooth range, along with associated metadata such as the date, estimated duration of exposure, and information about the Bluetooth signal strength. The Bluetooth signal strength can help provide a general understanding of the proximity of the devices. Generally, the closer the devices are, the higher the signal strength recorded. Other devices that receive your device's Bluetooth identifiers will similarly record and store them with associated metadata. The Bluetooth identifiers, random device keys, and associated metadata are deleted from your device on a rolling 14-day window. You can also delete this data by following the instructions in the You Have Choice and Control section below. And guys, let me tell you, before we even go to the You Have Choice and Control section, let me just tell you, when it's named that, there's one thing that I guarantee you do not have, and that is choice or control. Random device keys from individuals who have reported that they have CV-19 and chosen to share their keys with the Public Health Authority can be downloaded to your device. Following download, the keys will be checked against the Bluetooth identifiers your device has collected and stored from other devices. If there are any matches, you may be notified if you are at risk of exposure based on parameters set by the Public Health Authority for your active region, and it can provide you with guidance, such as recommending that you get tested or self-quarantine. If there are any matches and you've installed the Exposure Notifications app associated with the Public Health Authority for your active region, the associated metadata, and how the diagnosis was reported, as confirmed by a test, clinical diagnosis, or self-report, is made available to the app. This can help the Public Health Authority tailor its guidance to you and help it manage the CV-19 pandemic. This information is not shared with Apple. You can manage this feature by going to Settings, Exposure Notifications. There, you may select and activate a Public Health Authority's exposure notification. If you have location services on, then your device can notify you if you are in a region where the Public Health Authority has made exposure notifications available without requiring an app. In addition, if you have significant locations on, then your device can notify you if exposure notifications are available on a sub-region basis without requiring an app. Location information to determine whether to display these availability alerts is processed on device, and exposure notifications does not send your location information to the Public Health Authority or Apple. You can disable availability alerts by going to Settings, Exposure Notifications, and tapping to turn off availability alerts. You can also go to the App Store to download a Public Health Authority's Exposure Notifications app, if it has one available. So exposure notifications apps is what we're going with. I like mine better, health tracking and restriction apps. While you can authorize more than one public health authority's exposure notifications, only one region's public health authority's exposure notifications can be active at a time. You will be notified of potential exposures based on the parameters set by the public health authority for your active region. In order to select or change your active region, go to Settings, Exposure Notifications. Sharing a diagnosis. If you are diagnosed with CV-19 or present potential exposure risk based on guidelines determined by a public health authority that offers exposure notifications, you can choose to report that and consent to share your random device keys with them. As described above, this will allow keys to be downloaded by other devices that have exposure notifications enabled and checked against the Bluetooth identifiers those devices have collected to determine if there was a potential exposure. Again, your random device keys do not include your location information or identity. The Public Health Authority may also define and send metadata related to your transmission risk with each key, including how the diagnosis was reported and the days since symptom onset. If you have a Public Health Authority's app installed, you can share a diagnosis in the app. If you have activated exposure notifications for a region where Public Health Authority does not require an app, it may provide you with instructions on how to share a diagnosis, or you can go to Settings, Exposure Notifications. Information you choose to provide to the Public Health Authority is collected under its own legal terms, including its privacy policy and its own legal obligations, and such information is not shared with Apple. If you travel outside your active region, knowing that can help the Public Health Authority share random device keys so that you and others can be notified of potential exposures. If you have a Public Health Authority's exposure notifications app and you have location services enabled, it may, therefore, ask if you would like to share your travel status. If a Public Health Authority has made its exposure notifications app available for a subregion and you have significant locations enabled, your travel status can let the Public Health Authority know that you traveled outside the subregion. Your travel status can guide the Public Health Authority to share with or download keys from other regions' public health authorities. Location information is processed on device, and your travel status only indicates whether you've traveled outside your active exposure notifications region in the past 14 days. Exposure notifications does not send your location information to the Public Health Authority or Apple. If you have activated exposure notifications for a Public Health Authority that does not require an app and you choose to share a diagnosis, the Public Health Authority may ask if you have traveled over the past 14 days. This informs the Public Health Authority that you have traveled, but not your location or where you've traveled. In addition, if you have location services enabled, your device can download keys from regions where you have traveled over the past 14 days. If the other regions have also enabled exposure notifications without requiring an app, if you have significant locations on, your device can also do this on a sub-region basis. So imagine this bubble of Bluetooth devices that is constantly surrounding you, pinging off your phone, saying, hey, this person was at this place, and 10 other devices agreeing with each other that you were in a specific place. But not only to mention that, you can turn on significant locations on your phone and it will track you into sub-regions. Now, you have to notify them when you leave your specified region so that you can get a new set of Bluetooth identifier numbers. So somebody who, say, lives in Philadelphia but commutes to New York City, they're going to have to work that out. Which one do they want to be a part of? Because you can't be a part of both. That's depending, of course, on how they've divided out these regions and subregions, which we don't quite know yet. Many states have not even gotten involved in this yet because, again, this is the beta of 13.7. The other point I want to make is that they want us to all feel good and happy that the information is only stored on the phones. But at any moment, if somebody can get your phone, they can get access to your locations, where you've been, how many people were where you were at, all kinds of information from this Bluetooth location information that will be stored on your phone. And also, phones can be hacked, and we know this. So while it's going to do exactly what they say it's going to do, and that is to digitize contact tracing, because this kind of sickness, this kind of virus, it makes it impossible to do real contact tracing. That's what happened with the Clinton contact tracing army and the contact tracing in Atlanta. They all kind of just disappeared. It's impossible to do with this kind of virus. So they've automated it, digitized it, and I still didn't understand how they were going to pull it off with all these separate apps having to run at 60%. But now, with Apple making it a feature, they're going to have a good chance to get to that 60% rate of use to make the app viable. At least that's how they see it. And I swear to you, mark my words, but this ties in somehow to the Internet of Things and 5G. They are going to need very precise locations for each individual person. And I think that while Wi-Fi is good for that, what they'll do is use this Bluetooth technology they can use to locate each other from each other. It's almost like Batman's Bat Vision, like echolocation. You can tell somebody where they are based off what is essentially the reflection back to the phone from other participants in the system. So I'm in a room with 10 people. All 10 people have random Bluetooth identifiers. Those random Bluetooth identifiers are used to find how close I am to you, how long I'm close to you, along with everybody else in the room. It provides details about human-to-human interaction that have never been provided by technology before. And you watch the people who claim not to have cell phones are going to be walking around with their own specific QR code identified to them. At the end of the day, we're all going to get our own specific QR code. But anyways, location information is processed on device, and exposure notifications does not send your location information to the Public Health Authority or Apple. You can turn off location services and significant locations by following the instructions above. So there you have it, guys. It was like 2 episodes ago I was talking about the mask, the app, and the vax. And I was wondering out loud how if they know only 20% of people use it, but it needs 60% to be effective, how are they going to possibly close that gap? Why would they put money into creating these apps that they knew wouldn't be efficient? I guess now we know the answer to that. Even though Apple told me that they were only installing infrastructure so that other third-party apps could be downloaded and used as CV tracking, they actually installed an entire contact tracing feature for the Apple operating system. One that currently you have to opt into, but something tells me shortly you have to opt out of. And it doesn't have that many states right now, but trust and believe it will have all states before it's over. Apple just gave all these states the gift of not having to design a CV tracking app. All they have to do is opt in to the tracking app that Apple has provided. You can say it's a good thing, you can say it's a bad thing. You guys can have whatever opinions on the apps that you want. You know, people have a different ratio of privacy to health and what they're willing to give up, and that's okay. But all I'm saying is we saw it with the mask. Now we're seeing them do it with the app, just like I said. And we all know what the next thing was on that list. It's bizarre that this update came out just a couple of days later. That's what it is. Apple did not install an infrastructure for CV apps to come along and be downloaded. Apple installed a contact tracing feature into their operating system. Anyways, guys, like, share, sub the channel. Any donation is greatly appreciated. Bye, guys.